Well, greetings and salutations, everyone. I do hope everyone is still doing well, and welcome to, depending on wherever you may live, or however you choose to read your clock this early morning, middle of the night bonus upload. Before we jump into it, a couple quick links. As many of you know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, channel membership, and the merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. Links to Patreon, PayPal, and channel membership is in the description below, merch displayed directly under the video. Also, Dogman, Frightening Encounters, Volume 1 through 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeff Nadolny. Those audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, links to which are also in the description as well. And finally, last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to help support this channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe. It does not cost a cent. Click that like button, takes half a second. If you don't want to miss out on any of the informative uploads I put out daily, click that bell icon, and folks, please leave a comment. Why? Well, because all of these things really do help this channel to continue to grow and go. They definitely do matter, and they are appreciated. Now I have taken far too much of your time. Let's jump in to this early morning, middle of the night bonus upload, shall we?
Today's first encounter. This experience happened to my best friend and I. We have literally lost hours, days of sleep over this. My friend and I are still trying to process exactly what we saw that day. We've talked it through countless times, trying to logically figure out how it was possible. Hopefully, someone can shed some light on what actually happened. Anyway, I recently purchased a small bass boat, and my first mate Elle and I had been super eager to explore the lake and its islands, and learn the fishing around it. We were new to Tennessee. Anyway, it was the 4th of July, and we decided to go fishing in this very secluded part of the lake we named No Man's Land because of a low-hanging bridge that prevented boaters from entering that section. My boat can make it underneath because of how small it was, but I've never seen another boat in there. We decided to go deeper into the cove than we had ever been before. As we were slowly trolling down the lake, the path before us split into 3 ways. I said, "Which way should we take?" Elle immediately said the middle. So we continued straight as the water changed from a large lake to a narrow river-like path. This is where a chain of events happened in quick succession, and we've talked it through after the fact and tried to recall the order of how it all went down. First, we heard a weird vocal-like noise coming from the woods beyond the shoreline. We both tensed up and felt very uneasy. "What is that?" Elle asked. "A dog," I said, as that was the first thing that came to mind. "I don't think that was a dog," Elle answered. Then we saw a bird, high above us, perched on a branch, staring at us. "Maybe it was that bird," Elle said. "Yeah, maybe," I answered. "I'm not sure when it got into my hand, but at some point I had drew my pistol and held it by my side. Elle held the fishing bow. We both had a very weird feeling as we drifted downriver, eyes glued to the bank. Next, we came to a rotting pine tree that had fallen and was now half submerged into the water sitting on the shoreline. Then it happened. We heard this very loud, heavy-footed animal running through the woods, getting closer to the water. At first, I thought it was a deer as it almost pranced, but as it got closer and louder, we both realized that this, in fact, was not a deer. It was a very large, jet-black canine. My brain thought, oh, that must be a coyote. But it was much bigger, like a huge German shepherd, and it was fast like a black shadow, leaping through the trees and quickly approaching the bank that we were floating across from. It didn't seem to have any texture, and the details, though, almost like it was flat and blurry. We couldn't see its fur or its face and eyes, just the outline of its body and tall wolf-like ears. But it was obviously the body of a canine. Adrenaline started rushing through us, and my brain raced, thinking we were about to have to defend ourselves. It almost looked as if this thing was charging us, but it was zigzagging and dodging through the trees towards the exact portion of shoreline we were floating past. We were scared, but the 15 feet of water between our boat and the shoreline gave us some confidence. It would have to swim out to us, and I didn't see that as likely. It continued its leaping through the woods and quickly reached our portion of the shoreline. In one majestic, fluid motion, it leapt off that shore and dove into the water, right under a half-submerged pine in front of us. Stomp, 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 splash. That was it. We held our breath as we waited to hear it swim or move towards us. Small ripples reached our boat from the splash. After the fact, Elle swears the splash should have been much bigger for a creature that size. "Watch for it to come back up," I whispered. I had never heard of canines being able to submerge themselves underwater, but here it was happening, right before us. We waited, nothing, silence, just the subtle sound of ripples it made slowly dissipated. We waited 20 more seconds and still nothing. It was almost as if the entire forest had shut off. Silence. Our eyes were glued to that fallen pine tree it dove under. "Maybe it's just standing in the water under the tree," Elle said. We got the courage to troll the boat a little closer to inspect the tree, but there was nothing, no sign of anything. At this point, we are in complete shock, stunned it was gone. How could it be gone? How does something that big just vanish, especially a huge creature like that? After 30 more seconds of silence, Elle breaks it with You saw it, right? You saw it." A shiver flashed down my spine. "All of it," I replied. "Really, though, WTF was that?" Elle said. I replied, "I think it was a demon." We both nervously laughed. We floated near the shoreline in shock for at least another 10 minutes, hoping for a sign that we were not crazy. Elle scoured the waters looking for it, but it never came up for air. How the hell could a big black wolf-like creature disappear into thin air, or water for that matter? Being skeptics, there has to be a logical explanation for what we saw, but we still couldn't find one. If it had just splashed the water and gotten out again, we would have seen it walk away in whatever direction. Number two, we would have heard it, as anything putting weight on those leaves makes noise, but it was complete silence, the loudest of silence. We live in Middle Tennessee, if that helps. We're still shaken up by this, almost a full year later. Tonight's second encounter is very strange. To me, it sounds like a Dogman, but then it sounds like something almost supernatural. This is where that kind of, are they flesh and blood, or are they crossing port or parallel universe, going through portals? It's very strange. This is very, very strange, guys. I think you guys will like this one. I live in Moorhead, Kentucky, and I've been experiencing unexplainable things while I've been hiking around Eagle Lake or near Cave Run. Now, I'm not a superstitious person. I'm very rational when it comes to the animals in our region. It will sound as if something is approaching, coming much closer than any animal should, and when noticed, I react, stomping my feet, yelling, it stops. An unrelenting dread and overwhelming anxiety falls over me. I can't shake it, and I know I have to leave at that point. Each time as I've started to leave, whatever it is has charged quickly, coming much closer, and essentially chasing me from where I had just been. I refused to return to Eagle Lake after I experienced it the first time and chose to go to a pretty popular area near Cave Run. The same exact thing has happened more than once. I have not been able to shake the feeling. I have definitely been the only one in the area on both occasions, and there are no animals either. Definitely not large enough ones to make sounds like what I've heard. My girlfriend has been with me each time and has heard and felt the exact same way I have. If anyone has seen, felt, or heard anything, please let me know. I wish I could believe it somehow been the exact same creature exhibiting the exact same behavior 4 times in different areas, but it has become hard to do so. My girlfriend and I both agree that it is so clearly felt like something has wanted us gone. We've gone out so many times and have never experienced anything like this before or held an anxiety about going out. I'm not afraid of the wild animals in our area. I realize I sound crazy, but I really am just wanting some help or answers. A little added info. It will initially sound bipedal, very clear steps, always behind and to the side of us, and large, definite human size or larger. Once we notice and address it, there is a silence, never more than 10 feet away, sometimes as close as 3 or 4, when we are not turned and searching for it. Always coming towards us, except when we've noticed it, it seems as if it pauses and slightly retreats. We always decide to leave because of the disgusting "we are going to die" feeling that overtakes us. Every time, as we've left, it comes closer than before and no longer sounds bipedal. It's fast initially and nothing like the sound of a deer or any other largest 4-legged animal. Sometimes it will sound like the brush is being torn apart during these moments. As soon as we're back into a clearing, the silence happens again. Never able to see anything, which is what's always bothered me because we should be able to see something, literally anything. This has happened during the day and night. All right, so like I said in the beginning, it does sound a little like a Dogman, actually a lot like a Dogman, minus the not being able to see them. It's almost like it's playing a game with them and they are not a willing participant in that game. I thought a little bit about it. Maybe it's cloaked. Or here's just a idea that I was thinking about. Now, when we think of portals, or when I think of portals, I think of kind of like one general opening where this creature or creatures or whatever comes out of. It doesn't necessarily have to be a circle. It can be just kind of, but what if this land that they're at has so much kind of energy that whatever is on that other side doesn't even have to cross. Like there's just kind of like a riff almost. And whatever's on that other side can hear them and they can hear whatever is on that other side. And it's almost kind of, you're just terrorizing them for its own enjoyment. I'm not sure. And like I said, as I was reading it, I was coming up with ideas rather quickly. Not too far-fetched, I guess, when we're talking about cryptids. We still have no idea what these things can really do. So, anyway, let's get into the next encounter. This is my friend's experience, and he has given me no reason to doubt it. February 27th, 2023, my friend was driving home from work and passed down my country road sometime between 5 p.m. and 6 p.m., less than a mile from my house. At the end of my township, within 1,000 feet of the closest house, he saw an unknown creature. It was at the edge of the road as if it was going to cross. It was pitch black, very furry, had a bobbed tail and a face like a pit bull. I could see its jowls. It had dog-like ears, slender but muscular. It was standing on all fours. When it saw me, it paid no attention to me, but slowly turned around and leapt back into the woods. When it leapt, it jumped like a frog. Its legs were turned out, just like a frog's would be. It was appropriately the size of a Great Dane on all fours. My friend was uncertain if it had humanoid feet and couldn't identify much else. Where he reported to have seen this in this wooded area, right beside a small bayou, and there is a notable nook that leads off into the woods right around where he saw it. That very same night after he saw it, I heard strange sounds around midnight, akin to something climbing a wooden structure, thuds, and the sound of wood bowing. Possible side events. 6 or 7 years ago, I saw something strange leap between one section of the woods to another across the highway about a half a mile from my home. It was black, hairy, and ape-like at a glimpse. Now, 3 years ago, my wife had heard tapping on the window behind us. At around midnight, we laughed about it at first, but my cousin from across the street called me moments after and said, "There's something large in your yard." I could hear it running through our yard. It's in the woods now. We investigated and heard it rustling through the trees, but never saw it. The next morning, outside window that was being tapped had a large humanoid-like footprint, barefoot. To tap on the glass would require something to be standing at least 6 feet minimum, given the lifted foundation. About 3 years ago, me and a buddy were hanging out and we saw something strange walk into my cousin's yard across the street. It was large, black, and furry. It walked on all fours and appeared like a pig at first glance. We scoped in on it and couldn't determine what it was. It had a dog-like snout, but the stature of a build of a hog. It was the size of a large hog, or perhaps a large bear cub. I don't remember it having a tail. It sniffed around the house, circled it, and then went back into the woods. Now, a year ago, I was driving at night. From the far end of my road, there was a curve approximately a half a mile from where my friend reported seeing this creature. In the curve, as I banked a bit, my headlight shined into the woods and revealed eye shine. About 6 feet off the ground, I stopped the car next to where the eye shine was to examine. I didn't see anything else, but the smell of rotting meat flooded my car, and I promptly left. A year ago, I was outside around midnight when I heard strange noises in my cousin's yard. I shined a flashlight over there and caught some eye shine at average height from the ground. It looked at me and kept walking into the woods. In my experience, if you spotlight something and can see its eye shine, they stop and stare you down. This thing kept going, but watched me the whole time. I continued to shine into the wood line for a bit longer and returned about 15 feet down. It stared at me within the woods and turned around. I continued to shine my light and caught it one more time in the same place as the second encounter. It looked at me for a moment and turned around. I didn't see the eye shine again at the time. I had an eerie feeling that it seemed too sentient to be a dog or a hog, maybe a big cat, but normal woodland critters around here. For the last few weeks, my entire property has reeked of skunk. Our house gets sprayed from time to time by local skunks, but the smell usually dissipates after a few days. This time, it's almost been 2 weeks. The scent is pungent. Even out on the road by my house, my home seems to be the epicenter, but the smell extends around 100 yards around the home in all directions. All of these instances were just strange coincidence until my friend saw this creature. Now I'm not ruling them out as possible encounters with the creature. Any and all guesses as to the nature of the creature would be appreciated. Today's fourth experience. I believe my coworker is having an experience with a Dogman or a Bigfoot. She told me this the other night. her and her boyfriend had just recently moved to the country, about an hour from where we work. Because of COVID, she still works from home entirely. I'm still on site. We're very close, and she has listened to more of my Bigfoot and Dogman babble than anyone else. She Skyped me the other day and told me that she had heard a very strange noise outside of her house. Originally, based on the volume and how well it carried into her house, she thought it was a person talking in a normal voice on a cell phone right outside of her front door, or the neighbors screaming, just based on the volume, but it wasn't shrill or high-pitched. She heard it initially with her work headphones on and then took them off and heard it more clearly. Her little yappy dog was barking, so she picked it up and calmed it down, and the noise stopped. Then started again and continued for maybe 5 seconds and then stopped for good. Now she's grown up in the country, so bear, deer, coyote, etc., and she said that this sound she had never heard before. It freaked her out enough to where she called her mom. According to her, it sounded like a dog trying to speak English, but it was not English. She said it just didn't sound right. Like it was more verbal than any animal she has ever heard. Again, she thought it was a person at first, but then once she tuned in, she said it was like a huge dog trying to talk and saying the same 3 to 4 words over and over again. I explained the thing about Bigfoot and samurai chatter to her, and she said it was much slower, lower, and menacing and aggressive. She said that whatever it was seemed to be saying, "I will rip your face off." And when I started to get the chills was when she said that it didn't sound like it was straining to achieve that volume. She said it sounded almost like throat singing. Now, whenever I hear or read sightings, I look at the location to see if it's prime habitat for Bigfoot or Dogman. And this is 100% prime cryptid habitat. She lives in the shadow of the Blue Ridge Mountains between 2 streams, less than 1 mile from the Shenandoah River, backed up to something called the G.R. Thompson State Wildlife Management Area with 3 ponds within a 5-minute walk. This is a deep bush with everything a large creature would need. In fact, I have done tons of Dogman and Bigfoot research, and this is one of the major areas I have pinpointed nearby where I might have a decent chance of seeing one, given the geographic similarities to all of the accounts that I have heard. What do you all think? Bigfoot, Dogman, something else? I told her I'm going to come out there, especially if she hears it again. Werewolf? Werewolf, Bigfoot? I mean, I've heard there was an encounter that I did maybe 4 years ago. Many of you may remember it. About a woman who, excuse me, my throat's dry. About a woman who had pulled into her driveway. She had 2 kids, small little kids, both in car seats. And so what her initial plan was, she had pulled in, she was going to get out, grab one kid, and she lived in a very rural area, so no worries about people, you know. So she was going to grab the smallest kid, bring it inside, and then get the other. Well, when she's at her front door and she's trying to get in, she's fumbling with the keys, and she hears this like kind of growl, snarl, "I'm going to kill you," or "I'm going to get you," or I don't remember the exact wording, but it was not like, "I want a hug." This was like, I'm going to tear you apart or something. And so she looks and she sees this dog man. She runs and gets both kids and goes inside. I don't remember exactly how it ended, but I just remember the thing talking to her. Whether it been telepathic or verbal, she doesn't remember. She doesn't know. I don't remember. She doesn't know whether it was verbal or telepathic. Maybe this was it, but why would the little dog be barking unless there was some kind of energy being created by this creature, either talking or telepathically communicating. I'm not really sure. What do you guys think? Anyway, last encounter. So this whole time I thought I had never came close to one of these creatures, but then the other day a memory resurfaced from graduate school, buried by all the information I was doing and a 60-hour school/work week I was pulling at the time. I was living in an isolated coal patch much too small to be a town or village that consisted of one circle of homes. I believe there were 10, but only 6 or 7 were occupied while I was there. This was deep in Pennsylvania's rolling woods, about an hour and a half outside of Pittsburgh proper. I commuted into the city for school and work for financial reasons and just because I wanted the countryside, you know. The only store was a General Dollar, and the post office could never deliver my mail because they said they couldn't find me. And they just got Wi-Fi a few months after I had moved into the house-turned-duplex that I was residing in. All of the houses were built for coal miners. There was an alley that ran through the back that makes the back of a circle, and this is where lost people would turn around, and where the outhouses used to be. All of the houses' fronts face the surrounding countryside and woods. My place, it faces a holler, which I didn't mind until it was dark, and then I minded quite a lot. We've had gravel in the front of the holler to park in. I had to park facing the holler, staring right into that tree line, which started a foot from my car. I've always gotten the sense of being watched in the evening, and I honestly thought I saw anything, it would be there, but spoiler, it wasn't. I'm going to include the holler structure because it leads to why I feel this was a Dogman more than a Bigfoot. So, the top half where my car slowly pitches down into the shallow basin, off to the right of my car is a sloped entry out of the basin that you can walk right into the holler. Like it's been carved out. Same further down the road. There's a half a stone wall standing from an old house, but only one wall. Some wrought iron remains from the other side, but the rest has crumbled to nothing. On the furthest side is a staircase that goes nowhere. They just never tore it down. And the wilderness continued for another half a mile, flanked on one side by a cornfield and wilds until it hit the other side of the slope as a steep incline. There is an ATV trail that runs from the entrance for a mile and a half down along the banks of the creek. I got about 5 feet deep at points and ran through the whole holler from the start, turning into the circle all the way to the fields of corn where the trail ends. The trail and holler are surrounded by cornside or countryside, and by that I mean you can drive and not see anyone but cows for a while. There's plenty of livestock farm and cornfields are tall and abundant, even when it's just open field and rolling hills. Vast, and it's hard to tell what's there and what isn't. Cows, check. Sheep, check. Chickens, check. Plenty of cornfields, check. Water source that will not freeze, check. Mines, check. The mines, this area is full of abandoned mines. While I was living there, I acknowledged that yes, some big was possibly living in those mines. Something big was possibly living in those mines. Cryptid were vaguely on my radar, but they were mostly just like any other woodland animal to me. You go into their environment that isn't yours, and you're taking a risk on yourself, even if it's just for a morning stroll with a cup of coffee. But there wasn't much I could do about it, and because of grad school, I was too exhausted to do anything about it. There were nights I would be on my porch and I would hear a man's voice yelling for help, calling out, and I would go back inside and lock up for the night. Like, I've seen that movie before, right? In the evenings, mine gas could be seen rising in the holler. Every night, orbs would appear from the trees right in front of my house. It became like a light show, me a cup of coffee, my homework, the fireworks, and mind gas. All in all, it was a very plentiful thing to get distracted on. I knew what Bigfoot smelled like and what I felt like when they were around, having grown up in Ohio, spending my childhood on Salt Fork, and spending time outside in my own town. Our family ended up having rules for forest safety, and one is if the forest comes, it's time for you to leave. My parents never said what that meant. The forest, and they never said Bigfoot or anything about it, but we did learn the smell, not to leave out gifts, etc. Kinda glad we had rules. Coyotes, check. I noticed that there were a lot of animal skulls scattered along the shore. I attributed that to being coyotes who were active community members. I've spent nights listening to them and heard a pack take down a deer in that holler one night, so close I could hear that deer grunting. I became familiar with them and only saw one once. He was beefy and the size of a German Shepherd, purely sure he lifted weights at the gym. If my neighbors left deer carcass on the trail at all, it took this one evening for them to pick it clean, and this happened quite often during both hunting and off seasons. Food spoiled by humans, check. So this next piece actually made my blood stop for a moment because I remember thinking it was because my landlord was horrible, but when I moved in there were long slash marks along the house. A few more did appear during my stay, but I was like, haha, oh, the wind, because I had never lived in a house before. And all my brain was onto grad school. The most relevant part, I remember, was by a floodlight at the back door, which I had on religiously. So there were multiple times that I would go on morning coffee strolls down that ATV trail, suddenly feel like I'm being watched, stalked, or followed. Like too many, I can't count. I was too tired and stressed by school to react in an appropriate manner. I was in a rough shape for the most of them. I thought it was stress, but as things started to get stronger, I would sigh dramatically and say, fine, I'll go home, out loud, turn my heels, and walk back home. But that's not what I wanted to talk about. No. It's a smelly raccoon. Twice on 2 different nights, and my neighbor shot something in my yard. This was peak grad school crunch time. I vividly remember it being 1 or 1:30 in the morning because I was just letting myself do some writing in bed. My bed was on the 2nd floor and had one window in front of the bed and another about 3 feet beside that. I'm finally starting to relax when it hits me like a brick wall. It's this very pungent odor of musk and decay, rotting flesh, urine, horrible. It was almost like BF smell I had encountered before, but this one was more decaying, if that makes sense. Like you could smell the ironic smell of blood, whereas I hadn't smelled this before as a kid. I swear my eyes were watering. I thought I had left the window open. I rushed over to close it, but it is closed. I closed my blinds, but not before I took a quick peek outside. Nothing. The smell stayed. It didn't follow me from room to room. It just stayed in that one area. Whatever was issuing the smell was either on the roof or right below the covered porch. Either way, I was screwed. If this was a person who wanted in, they could easily break in through the potato quality storm door that didn't have a lock and was only held by a bar of wood. I made sure my room blinds were closed and sat away from the window. The smell lingered for hours, but finally it began to dissipate. I went to bed before it left. TBH, I was too tired to wait. Next morning I noticed nothing different. Nothing was knocked over. No one had left shoe prints, tire tracks, or cigarettes. I continued going with my stinky raccoon theory. It was the only way I could get through this because the next night Stinky was back. Again, I made sure all the curtains were closed and didn't even go downstairs for the bathroom. I just accepted my fate. I was going to die on the second floor at night because I was paranoid about a stinky raccoon. So stinky that it made my eyes water. So stinky, it scared the cats into hiding. So stinky, I needed my inhaler. And now, so stinky was back, and this time more persistent. Fortunately, I think Stinky was irritated that he or it couldn't access me, because this time the smell circled the home when I went to a different room, but I was on the second floor and had already closed the curtains. I had a blackout once up over the regular blinds. I had blackout ones up over the regular blinds, so I think I was just messing up a good time. Because that night, Stinky, whatever it was, came and only stayed for an hour. The next morning, I set to leave for my internship, stupid early, sun wasn't even up, morning fog, and the place looked like Silent Hill. Sometimes there's a siren as well. I was just waking up when I heard a shotgun go off in my yard. I hauled ass downstairs, thinking someone had taken a deer out on my lawn, and I am ready to fight, but when I get there, they're gone. I find the cartridge, or whatever it was, on the road in front of the house. It looked like someone took a shot at something on the lawn. My one neighbor didn't look at me for a long time, so I suspect it was him. He was always up early and had a penchant for shooting things. He very well could have shot at a deer. It's Pennsylvania after all. I didn't admit because it scared me. I'd never admitted until now because, well, I'm aware that it scared me, but I don't think that was a raccoon. You can smell a stinky raccoon through curtain window or closed windows and walls? No. You couldn't smell skunks when they sprayed outside, and they did that quite often. I'm genuinely curious about this. The more I reflected, the more I think I didn't know what happened. I'd love to hear others' thoughts.
And there you have it, folks. I do hope you all enjoyed this early morning, middle of the night bonus as much as I enjoyed sharing it with you. And I'd like to thank you all for supporting the channel. It is your support, after all, that helps this channel to continue to grow and go. And honestly, what gives us all a place and a chance to share our experiences and theories judgment-free. Everyone is simply treated with the respect that we deserve. Please, everyone, stay safe, happy, healthy, and ever vigilant, keeping an eye on our children, pets, family, and our friends. These creatures are real. They are out there and dangerous. Share this information with those you love and care about, and it may just help save their lives someday. Until next time, never stop asking questions, never stop searching for the truth, and God bless you all.